All right, guys, welcome to episode 5. I think we're on of the Progress podcast today. A little bit excited. I'm just, everyone knows that I'm a musician, so this is exciting for me. We're joined by Emily Dolan Davies. Emily, how are you doing? Are you all right?
I'm doing really, really well, Phil. I'm so excited to be here because we've kind of chatted a little bit online and stuff, and I think I'm more excited than you, so we can have a competition, but I'm pretty sure that I'm more excited. So thank you so much for having me.
No,
it means everything.
It's my pleasure. So for those who haven't come across yourself or what you do, can you just kind of fill people in a little bit on what the world is like for Emily Dolan Davies?
Yeah, so I am a professional drummer. I've been playing drums for over 20 years now, and I run a business called EmilyDrums.com, which is basically providing drum tracks for people remotely. And more recently, I've also started a business teaching people how to also run a remote recording business, and that's alongside touring when it happens, which obviously it's not right now at the time of recording this, and sort of offering free advice and educational material. And I basically keep myself busy and out of trouble. That's what I am, a professional one of those.
So you've recorded and toured with pretty much all household names as far as I'm concerned. Kim Wilde, Brian Ferry, The Darkness, Thompson Twins, Howard Jones, Tricky. You've got quite a vast catalogue of both material and live experience. How did the kind of remote recording kind of come about?
Well, it was a really interesting thing. So I had been touring for around about 10 years and I was touring every year. I was away for probably like 6 or 7 months of the year every year, and I loved it, and I still love touring. But what happened was I'd started working with The Darkness, which was an amazing experience. We did this album called Last of Our Kind. We did some shows, but as time went on, it kind of we both parties sort of worked out that maybe it was not quite the right fit. So we decided to part ways basically, and this was in, I think it was April or May of 2015. I've got the worst memory when it comes to dates, and I just thought, okay, my past experience tells me that once people think you're doing a gig, before that I'd been touring with Tricky, and I knew that no one would therefore call me for the rest of that year because they just assumed that I'd be out with The Darkness, which is a fair thing to assume if they didn't know. So I just thought, right, okay, I can either sit here and be really miserable for the rest of the year and sort of go, whoa, what do I do? Or I can just sit down and just go, okay, let me think about this logically. I'm the kind of person that loves to kind of just try and make sense of what's happening. So I just thought, okay, let me use this as a chance to just think about maximizing the things that I love about drumming and my career and this industry, and minimize the things that were great at first but maybe are not that appealing anymore. And I absolutely love playing with loads of different people. That was the biggest reason that me and The Darkness split, was that I needed to commit to just them, and I've got commitment issues when it comes to fans. I didn't want to do that. And I love playing songs, and I just thought, you know what, a remote recording business would be the most logical thing to do. I mean, I literally, when I tell you I had no knowledge whatsoever when it came to not just like the gear side of things. I knew about drums, I've been doing that for long enough, but all the microphones and preamps and how it all sort of fit together, that was a whole world in itself. But then there was this whole other thing, which was the business side of it, and I was like, I really have no clue about this. So I kind of just muddled my way through. Turned out I absolutely love sort of the business side of the studio, and I feel like I'm an investigator, or like Sherlock Holmes trying to find the best way of doing things, or how am I going to find new clients? Oh, let me try this and see what happens. So turns out I really thrive on the business side of things as well as the music side of it. So I guess I'm just really lucky that that kind of worked for me.
I mean, when you going back to what you were saying there about you've got this amazing gig of The Darkness, which, I mean, I've taught you I'd have to contain my excitement about The Darkness, but anyway.
I love them too, so I get it.
But when people talk about kind of business and doing things that you're passionate about, I mean, that must have taken some serious, I would have had sleepless nights to go from, hold on a minute, I'm playing with this amazing group of guys, we've just made this album, it's going to be all fun and touring and all that type of stuff. But then you kind of centre back on, am I really happy here? No, I'm not. I'm going to have to walk away from this. Like, that is, for me, that must have been such a hard decision to make. But then, obviously, as you've said, it's kind of been the right one, and you've gone on and sort of, you've scratched that itch that you've had to.
Yeah, well, like you say, I definitely had some sleepless nights. There was a lot of going back and forth in my own head about what's the right thing to do. There was so much of me questioning, am I happy? Am I actually happy? Do I want to be doing this? Because on paper, like you say, that is like a dream gig. When I got the phone call for that gig, I was just like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
This is like the next level. Let's do this. This is going to be so cool. And the guys are amazing. When I met them, I was like, we got on just instantly. And musically, and so much about it was so brilliant. But there was this sort of like, there was something there. There was this friction of like, but it doesn't feel right. And it's interesting you say about making a decision. It was an incredibly hard decision to make, definitely. And I think because I sort of thought, well, everyone around me is going to see me make this decision and go, she's absolutely bonkers. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to make the most of it. So I'm going to have to not prove to people, but just show that this is the right decision. And therefore, that's why I think I did sort of like consciously sit down and go, right, let me make sure this is the right decision by making sure that after this, my life is just going to be even better than what it was. And it was already great playing with those guys. Like I say, I've got so much love for them, and I've got so much love for that period of time, that album, the touring. But to be completely honest, it was the right decision, because right now, in this moment, talking to you, I have never been happier with my life, with where my career is at, with where it's going, the possibilities, and just to be able to exercise that right to go, I do have a choice here, and I choose to be the happiest that I can be. And I'm so happy that I took that little brave step for it was that short period of time of going, oh gosh, just do it and deal with the consequences. And it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
I think that's like, and I know a lot of people have this idea that musicians are a very different breed to everyone that has a 9-to-5 job working in an office. But what you're saying there effectively is you've got this really sort of, on paper, sort of secure, really good job, and then you've kind of gone, this isn't I want my own thing. I want to be able to control who I work with and the kind of projects that are, and you've walked away theoretically, from the secure 9-to-5 job, which a lot of people can empathise with. So you've moved from, you've said, right, okay, this isn't for me. You've come away from the darkness. Like, what was it like from day one, the day after you've told them, and then, right, did you have clients already to sort of, or was it just, nothing?
I had an idea. That was all I had, literally, because, as I say, when we parted ways, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just knew that I needed to try something else, and it just wasn't right. So, and like I say, I gave myself this sort of period of time of the rest of 2015 to kind of work it out and just go, right, I've been afforded this time. It's very much how I see this COVID thing, actually. So although obviously it's a horrendous thing that is happening in the world and there's so much going on, but at the beginning of this year, I had a full year of touring. Like, my diary was absolutely chock-a-block between touring and the bits of studio work that I could do.
I think it was Kim Wilde you were meant to be on tour with, wasn't it?
It was, that's right. So we were meant to be touring her greatest hits, because it's it's her 60th birthday this year, so she wanted to do a greatest hits tour. And so we were meant to be doing that. So my diary was completely full, and then as of around about March, it was like, oh no, everything's gone. And rather than being like, I did panic, don't get me wrong. Oh god, you know what? Better get more clients in the studio. But what I actually did was go, hold on a second. In the same way with the darkness, I've been afforded some time, which I don't have a lot of these days. So it's like, okay, what would be the most productive thing to do with this time versus just panicking and trying to fill it up with stuff, which is what I usually do.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I've got free time, I'm a nightmare to be around. But I just thought, right, let me do this strategically.
Yeah.
What can I do? And that's how the idea about the remote recording business course came about as well.
Yeah.
So once I have a bit of time to actually sit down and stop, I'm actually quite good at, well, I feel I'm quite good at sort of coming up with an idea and sort of seeing it through. But, you know, it's so easy to just get busy and forget to have time to reflect on, are you happy? Are you enjoying this? What can you do better? What can you eliminate that you're maybe not enjoying that much? Yeah. So it's just one of those things, isn't it, that you just learn over time.
So had the remote recording business, had that not entered your head at any point prior to that?
Not really, because in all honesty, because of my lack of knowledge of this world, I just was too scared. I was like, why would I do that? I'd seen friends of mine, a couple of friends were sort of doing it. And as far as I could see, they had all the knowledge, they had all the gear, they had all the experience. And I was like, I'm not even putting myself into that equation. Yeah. Like, I had done a few recording sessions at sort of commercial studios, which I had enjoyed, but I wouldn't say that I thrived from it, not in the same way that I thrived in live gigs. Yeah. So I was just like, I don't think it's for me. But then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, actually, that's quite a good fit for me. I just have this very small problem of, I have no gear, I don't know a thing about the business side of things, and I don't have any clients. So it became this sort of like, it started with me literally learning about what gear I needed. Oh, and I didn't have a space either, because that's the other thing with drums. We're not the most compact of instruments. So I just got together this plan, and I was like, okay, let's build a studio. Okay, let's just get some gear. And it wasn't expensive gear, it was just stuff that did the job. And that was kind of my basis, was like, I just need something that does the job. I'll worry about getting it sounding really great afterwards. Let me just work out how it all works, nuts and bolts, get that to sound as good as physically possible, and then gradually upgrade parts of the studio. And then I just started, like I say, sort of researching, well, how do you find clients? Because I like, what is that? Why, I'm a musician, I'm not used to doing this. So it was a case of sort of reaching out to friends at first, and then gradually getting sort of referrals from people. And I mean, it was a whole long process, which I'm sure many of your listeners will be like, yeah, I remember that. Not a single person through the door, and you're like, have I made a mistake? Because that's literally what I thought. I was like, I've just spent all this money and all this time, now what? And sort of the panic set in, and I was like, oh no. As you can tell, panic is a big part of my life.
I mean, I'd set up my own sort of marketing agency longer than that, 8 years ago now. 8 years ago now. And I did the same sort of thing. And I was standing in the kitchen, clear as day, and I turned on to my wife and I went, you know what it is? I've had enough. I'm going to do it. And it was like, well, you know, we went out for a meal and we celebrated, and then I kind of came home and went to bed, and it was great. Woke up the next morning, I was like, right, how do you get clients again? Oh, right, okay. And like, I'd heard on a podcast or a video chat that you did, maybe it was last week, where you said that you'd kind of fired out sort of an email to everyone, kind of saying, this is what I'm doing, if you know anyone, or you know, you're looking, or so. Was that quite a successful exercise for you, or did it?
Yeah, I think so. I think just people knowing that I was doing this thing. To be honest, the best thing that I got from sending that email was like, it was a moment of admission that I was doing this thing.
Yeah. It's almost part of the process, isn't it? Of like, right, exactly. I've sent the email, this is happening now.
This is actually the reality. Like, I'm out there doing this. And weirdly, that was kind of the first hurdle to get over, to just go, okay, cool, I'm officially doing this now, so I may as well get on with it. And I think the responses that I got were mainly people just going, really glad you're doing this, definitely keep you in mind. I mean, no one straight away was going, yes, I'd like drum tracks, because you know how, like, people are in different phases with their recording and whether they need anything. And at that time, it definitely wasn't as well known to sort of like do remote recording. A lot of people were like, well, how does that work? And then I was like trying to reply in a really succinct way, when actually in my head I was going, I'm not actually 100% sure how this is going to work, but so it was really good like that. And then I also had a couple of producer friends of mine who got back and said, look, if you want me to listen to the sound that you're getting from your studio, give you some tips, I'd be happy to do that. So it was nothing but a really positive reaction. And like I say, it was kind of the kick up my backside to go, right, you're officially doing this, you better actually do some work. And then that's when I started branching out. I would do daily searches on like Facebook and on Twitter and on Reddit, and just search for certain keywords, and then reach out to people and just say, hey, so I'm doing this thing, if you need some drums. And you know, a lot of the time you don't hear anything, but gradually just one person said yes. I remember that first guy, and it was like, oh, okay. And then I did that, and he was happy, and I was like, oh, okay, great. And then sort of someone else, and it sort of compounded, and obviously 5 years later it's just rolling. I mean, I'm pretty booked up, and I'm very glad about it. So I'm so grateful, to be honest. It's just, I still feel like, wow, this is actually working.
So have you found sort of, since everyone, and I hate to use the word lockdown because we haven't really been locked down, but that's just a political view and we don't get into politics, so it's like, since the whole COVID-19 thing, have you found that kind of people have just been like, right, well, I can't get into a studio now, I need to look for somebody who can do this remotely? Have you found, you know, sort of businesses gone like that, or what have you found?
It's really interesting, actually, because I think if you look at it I sort of see it as two different types of clients that I deal with. So you've got the guys that are the producers that work with labels and the sort of bigger name artists, of which there's not many that I work with, to be honest. They're not my main demographic, but they went very quiet. And I think that's because the music industry as a global thing kind of stopped and just went, oh, what do we do? Like, no, everything just stopped, and then we'll work it out. Whereas the people that I work with more regularly, which are the independent artists, went, great, I've got time to finish this album, this EP. There were other people that was like, I've had this passion project for years that I've wanted to finish, so would you like to be involved in that? So honestly, like, the influx was pretty intense for me. So my business just went up, and I to the point that because I decided I was doing this course and I knew the amount of time that I needed to dedicate to it, I was having to just say no to people, because it was just like, I need to protect that time that I now have, in the same way that artist now has the time to do their project. And it's like, to have to turn down work when you've literally had like a year's worth of touring, on paper sounds crazy and feels weird, but actually it's the best thing that I decided to do, was just protect my own time, and realizing how valuable that is to me, not just for work as well, obviously for like relaxation and trying to get a work-life balance, although I'm not great at that.
I think you'll find yourself, you probably sort of spread yourself too thin once you're sort of, you know, if you take on 8 clients a week, then you can give them, you know, quality time. Like I saw yesterday when you were doing the when you were live streaming on YouTube, like that period at the end where you were trying to get that the feel on the I think it was the kick drum. You were trying to get that spot on. Like if you had 16 clients in a week, like that time, because a lot of it is your time, you couldn't really spend getting it that right if you're spreading yourself sort of too thin. So
it's really interesting. First of all, I want to say thank you for being on that live stream yesterday. It was so lovely to see you. I was like, this guy on the ground, reporting in the field. I loved it. It really warmed my heart. But yeah, it's interesting that you say that about sort of spreading yourself too thin, because there was definitely a shift where all I was trying to do was get as many clients as possible. But then there was definitely a shift where I just went, actually, I should be focusing on giving my best attention to one client at a time. I shouldn't be, you know, jumping to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's partly to do with, you know, the whole mindful thing as well. It's good to be in that moment. And like you say, get that one kick drum that was driving me insane yesterday. I got it in the end, so it's fine, because when it works, it's like a relief. But and just being able to spend that time, and to be like yesterday, I think it was almost a 2-hour live stream. To be able to spend 2 hours chatting with the lovely people that take out their time from their day to come and say hello, and to have a chat, and to appreciate the music that's happening, and this artist is creating, and they're going, this sounds great, you know, can't wait to hear the finished thing. And I'm there just going, I can make sure that this is the best I can possibly make it. And there's to have that pride in what I'm doing is really brilliant. So I went from the shift of trying to fill up my week with as many people as possible to just cutting it down probably by about half and just going, actually, let's concentrate and be a little more relaxed and be in a better headspace and be more rested and all those things that make you do a better job. And in the long run, so much more important than just having quantity over quality, I guess.
Yeah. I think it somebody said to me years ago about just that, about quantity and equality and the kind of the connection between them two, and they used I don't know if analogy is the right word, but they said if Vincent van Gogh had painted 1,000 paintings versus the 20 or something that he did do, like it devalues everything. So if you're on from a business point of view, obviously you want to be on as many tracks as possible, but if you were on every track, it kind of like, oh well, she's kind of everywhere, and that's it. Exactly. Exactly. So you've got a business to run. You've got bills to pay. You've got to have that line between what I need to make and it being relative to the work that you do, as opposed to just saying yes. I mean, have you ever said no to somebody if when you've had the time, but you've kind of gone, this isn't me. This is. Do you know what I mean?
Often I get sort of. So, for instance, if someone gets in touch and they want like a heavy metal track that uses double kick, which I know a lot of people will have no idea what I'm talking about. So it's a very specific type of drumming. It's not something that I am at a level that I am comfortable to be recording for them, let alone charging them. So if I feel uncomfortable, I'm not going to do it. I think even, was it in that live stream? Or anyway, within the last couple of days, someone was asking me to do a Latin track. And I was like, no, it's not my thing. Like, I can do it, but it's not in my blood. It's not. It doesn't come naturally to me because I've been playing it. Exactly. I've been playing rock and pop and blues and all that sort of stuff and songs for the last 23 years. And that stuff is ingrained in my DNA. Like, I just understand it. And it's just because I've done it so much. So I would hate to do a poor job at a track that I'm not very good at. And then people think that that's how I play, because it just doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't make any sense. And like I said, I mean, like you just said, rather, as long as I'm covering my bills, I'm kind of like cool with it. Do you know what I mean? And for a very long time, since I was a kid, actually, when I very first started out, my whole focus has always been, right, how much do I need to make a month? Even when I was starting out playing covers gigs, I was living at home and it was like, right, I can't even remember what the number was, but I totted it up. It was like for petrol and insurance and some other bits and bobs, living at home, it was something like 180 quid a month. And I was like, cool. And at the time, it's like, that means I've got to do 2 covers gigs a month. And then I've covered my bills. And that's always how I've looked at life. And I don't know why that is. And I don't know if that's healthy. And I don't know if it's good business sense. But it works for me because it means I don't pack my time out. It's just doing things that I get to do. I get to be paid for it. And then I get to have this other time that I go, now I get to choose what I do with my time, which is really fun and such a privilege.
I think when you say there about sort of how people or how you approach billing for the work that you do, I think most people, greedy people, would kind of go, right, I just want to make a profit, I just want to make loads of money and but you've got to be pragmatic about it. You've got to say, right, what are my costs? What are my, my overheads? What do I need to make? And some people, like you say, I mean, are happy just paying their bills, and as you say, then that frees up time. And I'm a big advocate for people sort of focusing on their mental health and not going for this whole, I want to be a millionaire. I mean, you're on Instagram, I'm on Instagram, we all see it. Some guy sitting on top of a Bentley, and but people buy it and think, yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Really? Are you going to be that happy? So
you've got to ask the question, like, are they happy actually, and what matters really? And I think sometimes you've got to go through that to understand. And like you say, the Instagram culture thing is, I mean, it is a blessing in so many ways, but it is a curse in so many other ways, of just like people posting up their highlight reels. I say it so much, but it's so true. Everyone's Instagram feed is their highlight reels. So you don't see all the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes. They might be absolutely miserable with their life, but they're there smiling, like you say, sitting on top of a Bentley or whatever's making them happy. But actually, they're unfulfilled, and I don't advocate that at all. And I'm more about sort of like, aside from obviously if I'm doing a recording something for someone, I want it to be as perfect as possible. But I equally offer free sort of educational videos where I make sure that I do share the things that are hard and you know, the struggles that I do go through. And it's not because I'm there going, oh, woe is me. It's because I want other drummers, other musicians to see what I do on the highlight reel, but then also see the work that's gone behind it, so that hopefully they can relate and go, I'm feeling like that too, or I'm going through a rough time like that too, but she got through it. And she did something, and it's going to be okay, because it will be okay. You just got to find the way to make it work, basically.
I think, I mean, you'll have experienced this firsthand, and I would kind of, even for me, put the darkness into this group of people where, when you're young, and I mean, I bought permission to land when I was 16. I think.
Oh, nice. You must be about the same age then. I thought so.
I remember going into college and being like, Jesus Christ, this is like, you know, and it was the first day of college, and I had this album in my hand, and we all did like a sort of, I'm Phil, and I'm, you know, 16, I'm from wherever, and introduce myself. And one of the questions was, what was the last album we bought? So I pulled it out of my little backpack that I had, and I was like, these guys are going to change the world. And I remember anything that the darkness touched, whether it was, they were on Top of the Pops miming, which I had great issue with, but never mind. You know, whether it was they were on it Redden, or they were on what was it called, SMTV Live, whatever they were on, I was like, right, this is it. And you have this view of musicians, the stars, and the whole term, which you probably, if you had £1 for every time somebody said, "Oh, you've made it," like, do you know what I mean? Like, making it is just, it's such a broad thing, and it doesn't really exist. But the point I'm trying to make is, people are so transfixed on, you know, the likes of Justin Bieber and all the C's, the money, the fame, the cars, the women, the houses, all that type of stuff. And they don't see, I mean, Justin Bieber's an exception because he gets his songs written for him, but never mind. You know, that's a different podcast altogether. But they don't see the I won't call them the downsides, but they don't see the hard stuff. They don't see the hours and hours of writing and re-recording and tweaking and scrapping it and go. You know, they don't see the day-to-day mechanics of
process.
The process, exactly, yeah. And I think that tied in with Instagram, it kind of creates this illusion that everything comes easy to people and that life is great, and it's, you know, so I take my hat off to you for when you say that you record the difficult stuff, because there is more, I think, education and sort of exposure, especially young kids coming through, to have a balanced opinion. You know, yes, there is money there, you know, if you work hard, there is money and opportunity, but it's not going to come easy. You know, you've got to work. I mean, for me, when I had the marketing agency, I would say charge somebody X amount of pounds for a website, and they go, what, it's only a 5-page website. You're not paying for the website, you're paying for how many hours that I've had to learn coding and design. And so it's the same for you. When you approach somebody and they say, like, how much? Well, I've been playing since I was 14 or however, you know, I've spent thousands of pounds on kit. You know, I've been up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning watching videos and tutorial. Like this, I wasn't born like this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so
you pay for the experience,
exactly,
that comes with the person. And like they say, I love this quote, and I think it's so true. They say that it takes 10 years to make an overnight success.
Yes.
And I think that Instagram is the perfect showcase for exactly that, where somebody will suddenly blow up, and it's like, actually look into their background. I guarantee
do a bit of research.
Working a lot. And it's interesting you say about even the Justin Bieber thing, and, you know, saying about he may get his songs written for him, rather. Someone that I am working with at the moment said something so interesting to me recently. He said that the thing is with fame is that there is a trade-off, and so whether you're successful or not, whether you write your own songs and whether, you know, people don't see that process, if you trade your personal life for fame. And I think a lot of people don't also think about that? And
Yeah.
that was another thing that I was slightly uncomfortable with the darkness, was that side of things, although very small, teeny tiny compared to many other people, it made me feel uncomfortable because I'm a control freak, basically. And I like to be able to put out there what I want to put out there that I feel is valuable for people, rather than just something random.
Yes, of course.
And to give that up, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I don't think. Like, no amount of money I would trade for the ability to be able to say what I'd like to say to people, to help them.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's a whole nother side of stuff that also Instagram is great for, and social media is great for. You do have your own voice. You do have a platform to use in a positive way if you choose to, and I think it's really incredible. Although it does have its pitfalls, I think on the whole it's completely invaluable. Yeah.
So kind of this ties in with social media, funnily enough. So obviously you've built up this body of work with your own remote recording business, and you mentioned obviously the opportunity during this whole pandemic thing to kind of show others. I've followed the Drummer's Guide to, and that type, all the kind of the content you've been putting out, which I guess was a natural progression into putting all that together into this course. How have you? I mean, I know you. When did you launch it? It was
on my birthday.
That was right.
June.
That was right. Yes, that was right. I remember that. What kind of reception have you had on social media? Like, what kind of?
Amazing. Just so, like, almost daily I get messages just going, thank you so much for sharing this. And you know, I put out a free workshop that does literally give you a blueprint of how to start and get clients through the door. And you know, I'm not that kind of person that's going to hold stuff back. Yeah. So if I want to tell you about something, I'm going to tell you about it. I'm not going to go, you need to pay me this or that to get the information. It's like, no. If you literally just watch this workshop, you will start your business. You will get people through the door. So, and like I say, I've just been getting so many incredible messages of people just going, thank you so much. I didn't know about this. I implemented this and I'm getting clients now. And it's just, honestly, it's so fulfilling to know that I'm able to help people, and especially in such a tumultuous time as what we're living in now, to be able to be some sort of beacon for people to follow and be able to help them is just like, I can't even tell you how much it means to me.
I think that's when you talk, when people talk about business and why they get into it, like, some people are very much led by money. You've already said, as long as you've got enough to pay your bills, that's fine. Like, it's that feeling that you mentioned there that I think that's the real payday, is when you can, you know, you shut the door to your studio overnight time, and then, you know, you're lying in bed or whatever, and you just think, I've done good today, you know. And it's that type of stuff that I think motivates you the next morning. When you get up, you think, right, I'm going to do it again and again, and it doesn't become a chore. You know, people complain about their 9 to 5 and all that type of stuff. So in that sense, it is a very it makes it a little bit more special, that feeling. But I guess in a way, with what you're doing with the course, is you're enabling people to kind of be in that position themselves. Once they've got their business up and running, then with a bit of luck, they're going to experience the same feeling as you, which is, I guess, is that again, it sort of amplifies that feeling. You've done a good day's work, but then you've also empowered someone else to do a good day's work, and it's
it's kind of that thing of passing it forward. And like you say, it started out with a Drummer's Guide to. That was my first sort of moment of sharing stuff that helped people, and I was getting messages from that. I mean, that started in 2018, I think. Right. And just putting out weekly videos about random subjects, you know, about how to do tour bus touring, and you know, what it's like to have post-tour blues, and you know, all these sorts of random things that no one was talking about.
But it's as you say, it's the stuff that people don't talk about.
Exactly. And just to be able to make a connection with people so that they didn't feel alone was just really spectacular. So, and in a way, I suppose EmilyDrums.com, the remote recording business, is the same. I'm helping facilitate people to share their story, their emotion, their feelings in the form of a song. And you know, I just happen to get to play drums on that, which I'm just so fulfilled by it. It's like, wow, I'm so glad that I get to be a part of that, and a part of that team that's sort of like creating this thing. And like you say, now it's the same thing with the course, and being able to teach people how to feel the same way that I do, feel so fulfilled, feel like you have a bit of control. Because, you know, before I started the business, my income was based on somebody else calling me for a gig, for a tour, for a show. And that's great. When you're on the road, when you're being called, it's amazing. But inevitably, at some point, you get off a tour and then no one calls. And then it's and your whole being is kind of like, it centers around, and your self-esteem centers around whether that phone's ringing. And that's not healthy. That's what I worked out. That is, at least for me, doesn't work for me. So having my own business negated that instantly, because it's like, cool, I know if I can put in the time to my business, I can find clients and I can earn a living. Brilliant, that's perfect. And then following on from that, it was like helping people as well. It was just next level, like astronomical. Wait, if I can help people as well, oh my gosh, this is like the holy grail. Why isn't everyone doing this?
So I guess thinking about it sort of day to day for you, like that kind of almost fills your year up. Like if you do like a 3 or a 6 month tour, and then you've got remote recording stuff to do in between, and then you've got this recording business course running adjacent to that. I mean, like that's
a full year.
It is, but you're all also almost covering every base. Really, you're kind of taking your skills and talent and ability and kind of just what's the word I'm looking for? It's like
diversifying.
I suppose it is. Like some people will kind of pigeon themselves in a pigeonhole themselves rather in right. I like to tour. This is just what I do. Or I like to be in the studio. This is just what I do. You're kind of like you're doing everything. Which I guess at times can be like. Especially, and I remember that video that you did about sort of post-tour blues. That must kind of fill the void. So once you come off tour, and so you're not sort of sitting around doing nothing, you're like
twiddling your thumbs.
I mean, I've never toured. Like I was in a band like when I was like 16, and only done sort of local shows and things. So I can't empathise with that sort of post-tour blues. But I imagine it's quite a lonely place going from having, you know, crew and band and fans around you to like, right, wallop, so we'll see you in 6 months time, nothing. At least you've got the sort of the ability to kind of that day straight after, right, open up the studio, right, where we're at now. You know, it's
exactly sorry, I was going to say, like I say, it is completely life changing. And it's interesting that you say about not being able to empathise with the post tour blues thing. I have a question. So you know when you went and did a gig, right?
Yeah.
And the next morning, how did you feel?
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. That's the feeling.
Do you know what it is? There was one. We played at it was the Carlin Academy at the time. That's the O2 Academy in Newcastle.
Oh yeah.
Have you played there before?
I have indeed.
Right.
Yes.
So we were on in Academy 2 upstairs. And if you've been upstairs, the dressing room is like a matchbox. It's tiny. Yep. So we're in there, and you know, I think it was like a club night, so we didn't actually go on till about midnight. By which point everyone was hammered. We could have been U2 for all people cared, like you know. But this was a big thing for us. And we came off stage, and me and the guitarist Dan, we used to sort of have this thing of right, nah, I'm sick of this, I'm leaving, nah, I can't be doing it, I've had enough. And then you would go on stage, and then would come off, and would be like, that was amazing, like this was, you know. And I remember very vividly, we all walked downstairs, as you know, carrying your own gear up and down the stairs. You know, got to the bottom of the stairs, lashing down the rain, 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we got out. And I was like, I could not be happier. This is amazing. This is my life's made. This is what I'm going to do. And then, you just see, wake up the next morning, and it was like, I've got to go into an office for 8 hours. And I was like, oh my days. It was just so that coupled with the fact that the sort of the post gig, biggest gig of my career to this day, like it was that, and the fact that I had to go to a normal job as well was just.
So I can tell you now that feeling is exactly the same. It may be slightly different circumstances, but the feeling is identical.
Yeah.
You get off the road and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah,
Like, you come back to what feels like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just, you've come from this place of so much excitement and adrenaline, and, you know, and then you come back and it's like, oh,
yeah,
back to real life.
Yeah,
like,
there's bills landing on the doorstep, and there's nothing in the cupboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally that. So to have something to then come back to and to cultivate whilst I'm away, because the other thing about being on the road, being on tour, is there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
You know, the gig itself is an hour and a half or 2 hours. You maybe have a sound check, which is maybe another hour. So that's 3 hours out of your day. But the rest of the time is a lot of sitting around and trying to fill up that space whilst being exhausted.
Yeah.
And so that's why sort of like having the business on the road at the same time kind of works really well. So you can still be doing stuff, so that once, or at least for me, once I come back, it's kind of like I have a diary full of clients. I tried to take a couple of days off just to rest. I just put that out there because and it just kind of, I don't know, it just works for me, and I think it is about finding something that works for you and just trying stuff. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned from running a business, actually, is just not being afraid to just try something and see what happens. It's not that you put everything into it and it's all or nothing. It's like, I'm going to try this one thing, and if it doesn't work, nobody's going to remember it anyway, so who cares? And if, as long as I can learn something from it, then great. But maybe it will work, and then it's building upon that. And I love the feeling of being able to just try things and notice what happens, and then try something else. It's actually really quite creative in a way.
I think
I really enjoy it.
I think it's for our generation, it's almost like it's the risk attached to business is sort of almost less than like the generation above us. Like, when we start a business, we are quite happy to make mistakes and then go, all right, okay, fair enough, that didn't work, let's do something else. Whereas the older generation are like, I've ruined everything, and it's, you know. And I think, I mean, I've seen countless things on Instagram, you know, where people talk about if you're going to fail fast and learn from it and all that type of stuff. And it's true. You know, in your world, you might put something out. If you're quite an anxious person, you put something out there and you think, oh my God, it's the worst thing, I shouldn't have done that. But in reality, to the audience, it's like, well, we'll forget about that one and we'll move on to the next one. If you've got that ability to learn and to watch what you're doing and then analyze it and then go, that didn't work, that did, we need to do more of that, less of that, and that must be the same for you when you've, you know, whether it's trying to attract new clients, whether it's the communication with clients, everything, and everyone's different. You know, you're never going to get someone that, you know, follows the same model every single time.
It's so true. You've got to just, like, at the end of the day, I'm dealing with people. I thought in my head, when I envisaged this business, I thought it would be like a conveyor belt. I thought people would fill in a form, they'd order a track, I would do it and send it back with minimal contact. But actually what it is friendships with many people who kind of just occasionally will send me a track to play on. And although it's not what I thought it was going to be, I'm so glad that it is what it is, because I've met some of the most incredible people. It's just, I'm just so incredibly lucky.
I think what you were saying before about sort of people sending you these songs that are such a big part of their soul. That was the word I was going to use. Like, that is a very, very intimate thing. Like, if somebody's writing about a life experience or, you know, whatever it may be, like, they're almost saying, come and share this with me.
And trusting you with it.
Like, when people, you know, there's pretty much the soulless work out there, for, you know, but then to go from something like that to being a big part of somebody's art is like, I mean, that's gold on top of all the other perks that you have and all the other rewards. Like, that's just...
It really is. I like I say, I'm so lucky to be entrusted with that, and I don't take it lightly. Every track that I get sent, even if maybe technically it might not be the best sounding song or recorded in the best way, I don't care, because the very act of someone showing their soul to the world and letting me help them is, I just have massive respect, because, as you say, putting stuff out there, it's scary, and I'm sure you had you may still have it with the podcast, but I'm sure with that first episode you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. And I was the same with the Drummer's Guide too. But the question that I ask myself that makes me do things is, whatever I put out there, I never ask myself, is it good? Because I don't think anything that I do is good, and I'll say that up front. What I do ask myself is it good enough?
Yeah.
Is it conveying a piece of information? Is it, does it have value to people, or just one person? Even if it's just one person, I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah.
So as long as the answer to that question is yes, even if it's in a small way, that piece of content is going, and what happens to it after that, who knows? And it can either be ignored, which sometimes it is, or it can be taken on by people. And either way, like you say, it's a learning experience. And I think if you can look at things in that way, it kind of detaches you a little bit. Because I used to suffer massively with things like that, being anxious. I used to have massive social anxiety. I was obsessed with, people must think this about me when I speak to them. Oh, I'm such an idiot, and awful self-talk. I mean, I was a mess. But to learn to kind of step away and just go, actually, in the bigger picture, does this matter? Does this video matter? If it goes out there and people hate it, does it matter?
Yeah.
Actually, no, it probably doesn't. And what's the worst that can happen? Well, I can always delete it. So, okay, let's just put it out there.
But no, it's true. I mean, again, going back to what we're talking about Instagram, I've been guilty in the past where I've put something quite personal on Instagram, and then I've either done one of two things. I've either gone, I probably shouldn't have done that, and deleted it, or I've allowed myself to focus on the value of it being predicated on how many people like it. And it's so I think once you can remove that, obviously, as you say with the podcast, when I put that first one out there, it was right, please, I shouldn't say this, but you think, right, go viral, but it's never going to happen. There's a guy who I don't know if you've come across called Gary V on Gary Vaynerchuk. So he said something 5-6 years ago, and he said that 1 is greater than 0. Now, I tie that into what you say there. If one person likes an episode of the podcast, or likes one of your Drummer's Guide 2 videos, and then goes away and does something on the back of that, job done. Yeah, exactly.
Life is good. That is life. To me, that is it. It just takes one person, and to be able to connect with one person, even if it's them just taking out a second of their day to double tap and something, even that, it's you know what, I touched one person today, and I'm pretty darn proud of myself. Right, on to the next thing.
Well, no, and that's it, and not getting too hung up on likes and shares and all that type of stuff. It's so easy to do that. I think you almost lose sight of why you're doing it in the first place.
Do you know what? It's interesting you say that. So this is something that I definitely noticed about myself maybe about a year ago, and it was making me miserable. It was just I was putting stuff out there, but like you said, I was looking at the amount of likes, I was comparing it to other people, which is the death of everything. Never compare yourself to anyone. You are on your own journey. But what I did was, and this is awful, and I probably shouldn't be admitting this, but I don't care, I'll tell you. I decided, right, I'm not going to go on social media anymore. And the way that I deal with all my comments, all my messages, is through another third-party app, so that I don't even need to go into Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to reply, because inevitably you end up going to that homepage and scrolling and then going, oh no, well, this person's doing that, and that sounds really good, and I don't sound that good, and I don't really know what I'm doing, and I clearly am a charlatan. So to sort of take that out of the equation, it's made me so much happier, and so it's just made it a lot easier to put content out there, because I'm not looking at what everyone else is doing. I'm going, I want to put this out because I think it's valuable, not because someone else is doing it, or not because someone else has put something similar out. If that happens, coincidence, who cares? But I think just being able to work within your own, what are your own weaknesses within yourself, if that makes sense. I've got tons. I am by no means perfect, but I work with what I've got, and I make it work for me. And I think it's just, again, finding that, trying out something new, seeing if you feel better for it. If you feel worse, don't do that again. Try something else.
Well, it's a fairly simple sort of philosophy to have, but so many people get it wrong. So many people don't even acknowledge it. Do you know what I mean?
I think a lot of people don't even think that they have a choice. I think is the biggest problem with a lot of things is people think, I can't choose to not do this thing right now or anymore. And the reality is 99% of the time you do have a choice. It might be a hard choice. It might be the hardest choice you've ever made. But you can make that into the right choice by just following through and making it better, making a better decision for yourself, even though it's hard and difficult and maybe unusual. Yeah, it's just one of those things.
And I suppose, I guess, from a musician's point of view, maybe he's a musician who doesn't have either any experience or doesn't have any desire to get into the mindset of this is a business. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's one of the skills, I guess, that a musician who wants to get into either remote recording or just wants to get into, the business side of earning a living from music has to appreciate that philosophy of whether it's going into a studio, whether it's doing it remotely or doing a tour. Like, if something doesn't work, right, rather than let's just go wild and let's go down the Keith Richards approach of getting hammered and, do you know what I mean? Like, stop and evaluate what you've done, and if it went down, great, do it again. If it didn't, don't do it again. You've always got a choice, but I think it's getting through to people to make them realise that they've got a choice. Do you know what I mean?
I think so. And also, like you say, sort of like depending on how you deal with what happens, because so I had something happen to me very early on where I went to go do a recording session when I was 16, and it was like the worst thing that could have ever happened. I completely fell on my face. I thought that this was my moment where I was going to make it, and I failed in every way possible. I won't go into the details, but in every way possible, I failed, and I was asked to leave the session before the session was even over. So they didn't use my drums. It was awful. And the lesson that I learned from that was, it wasn't just the things that I'd failed on, it was the fact that I could have done one of two things at that point, and that was either I could just, like you say, not take the Keith Richards route, but I could avoid it and go, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'll go do something else because I'm clearly not good enough at this. Or I can actually use this and go, right, okay, well, I literally have a list of things that I need to work on if I want to be a professional drummer, because I fell down on this, that, the other, and all the rest. So if I just address those things, that will put me in good standing. And it was like this, it was the most horrendous day. I've never felt so awful in my life. But it was also the most brilliant day in hindsight, and probably one of the biggest turning points in me realizing, A, how much I wanted to do this as a career. And B, what I actually had to do this as a career. So, and from that point on, I just eliminated those things that went wrong, and I've made sure that everything else that I ever venture into, I try to do with so much. I just try to cover all the bases so much that I'm so over prepared that I will never feel like that again. So it was a really valuable lesson, even though it was incredibly painful.
So are these things that you're talking about there, about the personal self-reflection and self-evaluation, are these kind of things that you go through in the course itself, or is it more the logistics of it?
So it's more the logistics of it. It's funny that you say that, though, because I'm also currently working on another course which actually goes more into the mindset side of things, of being a professional drummer, basically. So it's a huge course, so it's a lot of work, and it's not going to be done for quite a while. But I think it's really valuable to kind of like just understand how to think about things, and not to say that is the only way. Obviously, there are many ways to do things, and just being able to have those sorts of things in place. But in terms of the remote recording course, it's more like the physical act of running a business. It's like the systems that you need to have in place to make sure that everything's organized, the way that you deal with customers, how that is sort of like, basically to make it as simple as possible, so you don't need to actually think about it, and actually all you need to concentrate on is making music, the fun bit, the good bit, the bit that we all want to do. And then it goes into how to look for customers and then develop relationships with customers, keep them coming back, leveraging your experience with them so that they tell their friends about working with you, and getting more people off the back of that. So it just covers all this stuff that I've sort of like learned and found out, and I leave out the stuff that obviously did not work. Nobody wants their time wasted. But I just thought, rather than someone else spending 5 years trying to work it out, literally, I think the total amount of video time of this course is like 2 hours. But in those 2 hours, I can guarantee that you will be like in such a place of like, oh, okay, cool, I can do it. It's just very actionable, That's the other thing. Taking action, scariest thing ever, best thing ever. Like that is the thing that will make a difference in your life. Forget about business, in life.
No, it's true, and you must know, as I know, at least 5 or 6 people in our lives that have always got this idea. They've always, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking, go and do it.
Do it.
What's stopping you? Oh, well, you see, I can't do this, and I got. well,
Well,
but again,
that's that then.
I found myself years ago wanting to do a podcast, and I was exactly the same. I kind of went, I haven't really got the gear, but it is you. I noticed you said before you went out when you first started the recording business, and you didn't get the best stuff. You got the stuff that would get you going.
Work. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's the same with me. If you've seen the stuff that I've got lying around, do you know what I mean? Like little tripods and things.
Love it. I've got loads of. Look at this. This is some weird. This is to put a camera on a microphone stand.
I mean, this one's just the word. Like, it's just flip, but it's off Amazon.
Brilliant.
It costs next to nothing. It does the job. That's the thing.
It does the job, and the thing is that you've got to start somewhere. So just start. That's actually the biggest thing. Because what I sort of realised as well. What if I had all this super expensive equipment that I didn't know how to use? So I wouldn't be getting the best sound out of it anyway.
There's a lot of people that do that. Like, again, you will have met several drummers or musicians in your career where they go, right, I've just getting this what's that company that do the they do the see-through drum, is it RCI?
Oh, see-through drums. The only ones I ever know are Ludwig. So
right,
I don't know.
Okay, so you meet a guy or a girl who has just spent 3-4 grand on a John Bonham signature Ludwig kit. However, let's play, and they can, they're barely strum. Do you know what I mean? They kind of play. There's so many people out there that will go and do that and buy like a 3 grand Gibson and can barely play Smoke on the Water. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's those people that think that the technology and the gear will make them successful. It's not that at all. Like, as you said, you've built a successful remote recording business, and yes, you've added stuff, but you cobble together stuff and got yourself going. I think it's those people that ultimately will succeed because you're not focused on spending money on all the gear and all, it's for the love of it. I want to do this. I will do whatever it takes with whatever I have to get going. And I think,
and it's just there is nothing that will beat experience, and if you're experienced in using awful gear not the best situation, but you make it work, that is way more valuable than having all the equipment and having I've recorded 2 drum tracks in the last 7 years. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense. So I'd rather just get my hands dirty, get in there. I mean, you look at my first so in fact, even before I did a drummer's guide 2, I was releasing these Ask Me Anything type videos, like maybe a couple of years before. They are the most god-awful things you've ever seen in your life. They're still on my YouTube because I think it proves a good point that you don't need to be good when you start. You just need to start, and then you work out like what works and what doesn't, and you make it better. And I'm not saying that I'm good. I there's so much about my videos, my podcasts, all of that is so wrong and not great technically, or I don't care. The point is that I'm getting across the information that I want to get across, and people can get something from it. So that's winning in my books. It doesn't need to be some Michael Bay professional director, crazy big explosions going on. It's not. I'm not about that. I'm about being me, and I am imperfect, and I think to be comfortable with that and to show people that and let other people also go, oh, me too. I'm a bit of a doofus.
And do you know what it is? That's the thing. Like, I've watched, like, I subscribe to I follow like the Drumeo on Facebook, and like they are like, they're not super well produced, but like, you can see that there's a lot of gear that and you watch them, and I just think like some of them are hit and miss. Some of them are really good. Some of them, like the guy with a stick twirling thing, and like, what are you doing? But then, there's but then you come across, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but they come across videos of yours that are just you and a camera and really, really good, honest advice, guidance, whatever, that people can take a lot more from than seeing you, twirling sticks and doing backwards cymbal thing. Do you know what I mean? Like the cringe stuff. Like it. But again, like I think as you see there, people will also, that'll resonate with people, and you'll probably find that somebody like yourself who is just authentic and puts out, look, this is me. I'm not going to try and be something that I'm not. People resonate with that, and I think from a business perspective, that must have a knock-on effect for how many people will reach out to you because you're approachable. You know, there's no pretentiousness or anything like that.
I've got no time for it. I've got no energy to do it. But it's interesting that you say because we've referenced him already. The person that actually made me realise that, like, why I like certain people. There's certain people that I watch on video when they're talking, and I go, do you know what? I really like you. And it doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with everything that they're saying.
Yeah,
but I just go, I like the fact that you're honest. And the first person to really make me feel like that was Gary Vee. I was just like, do you know what? You're probably like warts and all. Like, he does not care. He does not care, but he cares about getting the information out there. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I read the audiobook I listened to the audiobook of Crushing It.
Yep.
And because he narrated it, and just the way he did it, and the fact he came out of the narration,
he comes off script,
off on a tangent for a little bit, and I just was like, and although look, I love Gary Vee, he is way too intense for me. He's social media scheduling, like how he does it, amazing. Too much for me. I literally want to kill myself if I was doing it that much.
If you notice though, like one of the things that I've because I took a break from Gary Vee, like where's it gone? It's there. So when he launched that, I went down to London, paid like 50-60 quid, met the guy at the book launch, and like, do you know what it is? He was really, really spot on. But one of the things that he said was, one of the questions that I asked him rather was, look, I've got 2 kids. This whole 18-20 hours a day thing is not practical for me. And, he talks about the hustle, the grind and all that type of stuff. And he said something along the lines of, look, this is me. I've got the support network to do these 18-hour, 20 days. If, you do you just focus on what is best and what is healthy for you. And since then, he's sort of like, I mean, he's probably said it to thousands of people, but it resonated with me, and it made me kind of look and go, right, okay, let's just scale things back. Let's stop trying to be the guy sitting on top of the Bentley on Instagram. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
But I can relate because I felt exactly the same. I listened to that book and I got really into his podcast. I was watching a lot of videos and I became really overwhelmed and I felt exactly the same as you. And I was like, I'm not doing enough. I should be doing more. I should be doing this. I should be creating multiple pieces of content for one piece of content, repurposing all this stuff. And I was just like, this is too much. But once I stepped back, and now where I'm at a place of I can manage this and it makes sense to me, and I'm not working 20-hour days. Absolutely not. But the point is that I'm doing it in a way that works for me, that seems to resonate with people, which is great, and that's what I want. In contrast, and again, I probably shouldn't say this because I know that to a lot of people, in terms of connecting with people, I know a lot of people idolize this guy, and there's a lot that I like about what he says. But Tim Ferriss, I find really hard to connect with because I don't know, there's something too perfect about him, the way that he presents himself. But maybe that's just the things that I've seen, I don't know. But to me, those are 2 very contrasting people. But it made me just realise, okay, I don't like the polished people. And it's not to say that other people will, and it'll resonate with them, and that's awesome. But it's interesting that 2 people that are sort of like really gung-ho about what they're doing, it's like one resonates, one doesn't. What's the difference? I think
I could probably, my opinion on what the difference is Gary Vee will often say, like, I've failed. I want to fail. I want to learn. I want to make an investment, and I come out with nothing because then I learn. He's quite humble about his beginnings. He's, he'll say, I tried this, it didn't. I haven't listened to a huge amount of Tim Ferriss, but what I have listened to, it was very much like that. I just thought, nah, you're not.
It's a bit too, I'm really great.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't know. In fact, it might be an English thing, because
quite possibly
uncomfortable with because a lot of Americans that I chat to, they love him, they adore him, and I'm like, that is brilliant. I wish I could feel like that because I want to. I really want to. Yeah. But honestly, the amount of times I've started reading the 4-Hour Workweek and just had to skip over the beginning bit where he's talking about being somewhere where he's doing some dance competition, and then he managed to do some judo competition and he swindled the rules and a loophole. And I was like, this isn't me. I hate to do that because I'm just not that person. I want to be the person going, I failed at this. I failed at that. But look, managed to make a career nonetheless. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I feel like that is it just resonates with me more. And like I say, it might be an English thing. We don't like people doing well.
I think it's definitely an English thing.
Yeah, it's so awkward. It's like, oh no, I'm not that good, but thank you very much.
Yeah. So I mean, again, on the back of what you're saying there, about sort of resonating with people and sort of you looking to Gary Vee or to Tim Ferriss for sort of inspiration and whatnot. What would you say to an aspiring musician or a musician who's looking to get into remote recording, besides obviously signing up for your course?
Of course.
Yeah, plug. We've done well to get this far without plugging it. But no, I mean, like, you know, as you say, the content that both you and I put out there, it's very different content, but essentially it's always to try and help someone. So what would you kind of say, obviously besides signing up for the course, what would you say to somebody looking to get into remote recording? What would you kind of say as a sort of two best bits of advice you would give?
I would say experiment first of all, in terms of like not just finding clients and stuff. Experiment with your sound.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what instrument you're playing, like just create a sound that you love, because you know I'm here, I've got 16 channels of audio in this studio and I love the sound of it because it's the kind of sound that I love. But if you have one microphone that's a USB mic that costs 40 quid that you plug into your laptop, if you can make that sound like you, if that makes sense, and it doesn't need to be some hi-fi experience, it's amazing. It can be really gritty. And maybe you use some like crazy effects on it or whatever it is. Just make it you. Make this a sort of a creative experience, because there might be people that will hear that and go, "That's the sound. That's what I want." And like I want that person on my recording. So I think just experiment, see what you enjoy, own it. Don't try and be like everyone else. Just realise you're on your own path, and also be open to a different idea to what you thought your business was going to be. Because, like I said, I thought I was going to be either working with like the conveyor belt thing that I was talking about, where it's literally just order online and you get your track the next day. I also thought I would just be working with, like, my ideal was to be working with producers, so I work with 3 or 4 producers who each have 10 artists that they're working with, and I'm the one supplying the drums. Actually, no, it hasn't ended up like that, and do you know what, I'm really glad, because I get to have these wonderful personal one-on-one relationships, but that was not in my vision when I started. So I think to be able to be flexible and don't be afraid to just explore the different possibilities, and then that also goes for things like social media. I think if you can get into social media, I know a lot of people are very against it for various reasons, but if you can utilize that, it's a very powerful tool. It really is. I hate it when people say that, but it is a powerful tool.
You can fight it as much as you want, but it's just a fact, isn't it?
It is, and at the end of the day, it's music, so you need to connect with people, because that's what music is about. It's about connection, like on whatever like level you look at it. So what it would make sense, therefore, to follow that through within your business. So try and make connection kind of the focal point of your business. It's not about how many people you have, it's about the quality of those people and those friendships that you cultivate. So I'd say that. I'm pretty sure that's like 7 tips. So, was that, or was that just one? I don't know. I'm so sorry, I have a ramble.
No, that's fine. You've just pretty much you've condensed the 2 hours of your course into 3 minutes.
3 sentences.
We've got a couple of questions here which I'll read out.
Great.
One from Phil Bell, who is a drummer. He says he's a good friend of mine actually as well. What amount of mixing do you do to your drums before sending stems back to your client? Do you leave them raw, or do you add any EQ, compression, etc.?
So in terms of that, I add a tiny bit of EQ on different channels just to bring out the microphone and the drum, because otherwise, if it's flat, sometimes it can sound a bit weird. But other than that, completely raw, no compression. And the reason is, for me, I don't have enough knowledge about compression and EQ and various other sort of things that you can do to audio, to, like, if I actually did all that stuff, it would lower the quality of what I'm sending out. So I would much rather send it to someone who is then going to use a producer who will professionally mix it and, you know, use all those tools to make it sound incredible, because I know that I can't do that yet. I'm working on it, and
Yeah.
maybe at some point I will be able to do that. But right now, I just try and send the most high quality raw files, which I know that that's the best product that I can give to my clients right now. But like I say, I'm working on it, so who knows? In a year's time, I might be there all bells and whistles.
Yeah, forget EQ. It's all about compression. Yeah.
Exactly. It's fine. But yeah, I'm always learning. That's the point. I'm always learning.
But again, I think that's another thing you would, not just in sort of remote record, but in business, always learn. Do you know what I mean? Like
always.
You can, if those who are frightened or against constantly learning are just going to get left behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so true. And it's funny you say about we all have those friends that are kind of the Dell boys. Oh, I've got a great idea.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
In a year's time.
Yeah, but literally the first thing that I always ask them is, oh, so have you read any good business books recently? And I swear to you, more often than not, it's, oh no, what? I've never read a business book, or I've never listened to a podcast, or I've never, none of that. And I'm like, I am obsessed with listening to audiobooks, podcasts, like what are people doing? It's just so fascinating to me. Like it's a really interesting thing. So I can't understand, but I do wonder whether there's a correlation between people that are stuck in the one thing that they learned 10 years, 20 years ago and just keep doing that but not moving with the times versus the people who are like, try this, do that. What was a really good book I read recently? Oh, do you know Rob Moore? You know him, English author? He did a book called I'm Worth More. Right. And awful title, can I just say, because it makes it sound really like money orientated.
Yeah.
It's not at all.
Okay.
It's this incredible business book about like just utilizing stuff that's happening now. But not only that, he talks about like the mental side of it, which sometimes a lot of books don't really go into. It's like business. Yeah. But actually, the mental side of it is a massive part of it, because you need to see things in the right way before you can even think about like tackling them. Otherwise you just end up falling on your face. So it's just really interesting. But I'm always into reading new books and seeing what's about and all that.
No, well, you've got to, again, like I say, there's no point in being stagnant. If you can learn something new that can help you or someone else, then happy days. We've got another question from Dan Hardy. Right, how do you combat the lack of live input from others, such as bandmates, other engineers, etc.? I sometimes struggle with becoming deaf to the progress I'm making, and have to go away and come back regularly with a fresh set of ears. So, how do you combat the lack of sort of creative input from people in the room versus just doing it over an email or?
Yeah, so weirdly, it suits me down to the ground. What it means is I'm very much the person, and I'm like this live as well. So every song, let's not say every song, pretty much every song that I ever play live or I ever record, I like to either absolutely know what the story is behind that song, or I listen to the lyrics and I make up my own story around it. But what I then do is I plug in my own life experience to that. Now, sometimes what that means is, like yesterday, for instance, I probably didn't show it very much, but for some reason, the chorus of that song just made me so angry, but in a really cool way. Really, like, I just felt aggressive when I was listening to it. And what you probably didn't see is when I was in the studio recording it, on that last take, I was just like, I was angry. I was so angry, but it's what the song needed. So, and the brilliant thing about this is that I am at home. I can get into whatever kind of state that I need to be in, even if it's down to the kind of clothes that I'm wearing, which sounds ridiculous.
No,
it's
it
true.
Makes sense.
Like, so the other day I was doing a song, it was a charity song for a Brian Ferry tribute, and we were doing a version of Stick Together. Right. So I actually put on one of the outfits that I used to wear on stage with Brian.
But it gets it in the mindset,
Exactly, but it got me there, and I was like, cool, that's great. So for me, it works super well because I can have my own process that I've developed. I didn't have this at first, but I now have my own process where, because there's no one here, aside from on the live streaming, obviously there's people there, in the room, as it were. Because I'm here by myself, I can be honest about who I am as I'm playing, rather than trying to be this kind of person that a producer is interacting with, or there's a lot of other elements that go into the fact that if the artist is in the room. That's a completely different dynamic to versus just the producer versus just me by myself with an email and some references and me going, cool, right, I know what I want to bring to this. Like as a pure emotion and a pure drum part is how I feel. And then we can go from there. If I then send it back and the artist is like, actually, no, I wanted something more like this, it's like, cool, all right, we'll do that. And then I'll change how I'm sort of like seeing it and feeling it. So for me, it actually works really well, but it is a very different thing. I think if you're in a band, there is something beautiful about being in the room together, because obviously you need that collaboration. It is what being a band is. But if you're a session musician, essentially you're a hired gun. You're there to do a job, and you've got to put in the right kind of emotion and energy. You know, I'm not there going, excuse me, I need to be a featured artist and I need a 4-bar drum solo in the middle eight. And you know, I'm not that person. I'm right, what does the song need? I'm going to do that. That's my baseline.
Happy days. Do you know what it is? I could talk for hours and hours, and I know you probably don't have that. So, but Emily, listen, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Where can people find out a bit more about what you do and to sign up for the course if they want to?
Yeah, so I mean, the best place to find me at the moment is Instagram, probably. So if you just look up Emily Drums, and I will be there, and there's a link on my bio that has a link to literally all the things that I do. Oh, I didn't tell you as well, I release free drum stems as well every week.
Yes.
We didn't even touch on that. So anyway, just go to my Instagram and you will see plenty of me playing and blathering on. If anyone's interested in the course, you can go straight to remoterecordingbusiness.com. But yeah, just come say hi. I think that's my main thing, is just come say hello, let's have a chat, and let's talk about Star Wars, obviously.
Yes. What a way to leave it. Thank you so much. Get in. Emily, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thanks for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Cheers.